Hello. Today we will solve another problem on the topic of average speed. We will consider the calculation of average speed by modulus and by direction. Let's begin. In front of us is the trajectory of the body, which is represented by 3 sections. Each section is 2 kilometers. And on each of these sections, the body moved at different speeds. 10 kilometers per hour, 20 kilometers per hour, and 40 kilometers per hour. Eventually the body hit a certain point, which we see in the figure. Let's label the initial point of motion, point A, and the final point of motion, point B. Let's calculate the average velocity of the body modulo. We can determine this speed by calculating the total path that the body traveled during the entire time of motion, and then we need to divide it by the total time of this motion. The general formula is as follows. If we look at the figure, the total path that passed the body is the sum of all sections of the trajectory, and each section is 2 kilometers. So the total path will be 6 kilometers. Let's calculate the time of motion on the first section. To do this, we divide the path traveled by the body on the first section by its velocity. Here we get 0.2 tenths of an hour. In the same way we calculate the time of the second section. To do this, we also divide the distance traveled by its speed. And here we get 0.1 tenth of an hour. And so the third section, we calculate the time on it. And we get a time equal to 0.0, 5/100ths of an hour. So the total travel time is 0.2 tenths of an hour plus 0.1 tenth of an hour plus 0.500ths of an hour. We get 0.3500ths of an hour. Let's calculate the average speed modulo average speed. To do that, we divide the total distance of 6 kilometers divided by 0.3500ths of an hour. So here we have an approximate answer, which is 17.1 tenth kilometers per hour. This was the average speed modulo. Now let's see what is the average speed in direction. To do this, you and I must understand that the average speed in the direction we will calculate the average speed as the ratio of the movement made by a given body to the time for which this movement was made. What is displacement? Displacement is a segment connecting the initial point and the end point of the trajectory. In this case, we see that the displacement made by this body will also be 2 kilometers. And now our task is to calculate the average velocity, taking into account its direction. Let's write down the formula for average velocity. So the modulus of the average velocity taking into account the direction, let's calculate it as the ratio of the displacement made. By the time for which the body has made this displacement, and here we see that the displacement that made this body is 2 kilometers. The time for which this displacement was made is still 0.3500ths of an hour. So we get the same approximate answer of 5.7 tenths kilometers per hour. As we can see, the answers are different. And this confirms once again that the average speed in modulus and the average speed in direction are different speeds. Direction are different speeds. And in problems, we should always pay attention to what speed we are talking about. This is the end of our lesson. Goodbye.